Okay. Good morning. Good evening, everyone. My name is Paul Bloom, and I'd like to welcome everyone to the Israel Inspiration Initiative, which is a cooperative exercise with Nefesh B'Nefesh, Mizrahi, National Council of Young Israel, and NCSY. Our objective is really to inspire you to take your next step in your plans for Aliyah. I'd like to thank you all for joining us. Like there's no special thanks to Rabbi Malitzky, who opened up his shul to us. In addition, I'd like to thank Josh Caplan and Mark Kaplow for organizing this. And I'd also thank the rabbis of the community who are participating in this. Rabbi Kaufman from OE, Rabbi Jaffe from AY, Rabbi Medanik from AA, and from the Young Israel, Rabbi Hess. Each one of you are in a different stage of your thought process with regard to Aliyah. Some of you are ready to jump on a plane tonight. Others are thinking about filing a tik with Nefesh B'Nefesh, and yet others are still thinking about what type of conversation should I have with my family when it comes to Aliyah. This will probably be one of the most important decisions that you will make. Not only affects you and your children, but affects all your generations from here on in. You have an opportunity to join Klal Yisrael in shaping the future of the Jewish people in our homeland. We are privileged to be living here in a very special time, miraculous times. What we accomplished in the past 76 years is unprecedented. We are working with you to seriously consider being a partner in the next chapter of Jewish history. So let me quickly go through the agenda. And we've made some minor changes. Rabbi Malitzky will provide some community inspiration, followed by Rabbi Mischel from Ramat Beit Shemesh. We will then jump to healthcare in Israel, which will be presented by Dr. Aaron. We'll then focus really in on your children, your education of your children, and Rabbi Freedman and Ariela Davis will be talking about education opportunities for your children, both in the younger grades as well as high school. One of the key parts of your children's development will be after-school activities. NCSY Israel is playing a very major role in helping Anglo children integrate into the Israeli environment. And Yigal Marcus, the CEO of NCSY Israel, will be addressing us. Finding employment is one of the issues that has constantly coming up, and Daniella Kay will be addressing how to find employment in Eretz Israel. One of the most challenging decisions is finding community, and we have the opportunity here from Rafi Shulman, from Olim Advisors, Rabbi Golden from Mizrahi, working with Young Israel, who will talk about a very special program that's going on. And we selected one community out of literally dozens of communities. Harish, Rabbi Felberg will talk about the community in Harish and how it is actually accommodating Anglos in their community. We'll finally go to maybe one of the most important presentations is raising a family in Eretz Israel. And Dr. Agatstein will address that. And then we have the privilege of having Yitz Motzen from Nefesh B'Nefesh, who will answer some of the questions you have submitted, and as well as we'll take questions at that point in time with regard to what things are on your mind. In previous sessions, we have not had the opportunity to answer all the questions, but we will answer all those questions, and we will post them and send them out to you. So without further ado, let me pass it on to Rabbi Malitzky.
Thank you. It is a zechus to be here and to be sharing some words with you. I'm a little bit uncomfortable speaking here because I generally do not talk about things that I'm not planning on doing in the near future, but maybe after my remarks, my mind will change. I've heard many reasons why people want to go to Israel, and I think most of them, in my opinion, are not sufficient reasons to go. I've heard people talk about the financial reasons, high tuition costs, and it's better in Israel. I've heard that America, it's not safe today. Who knows what's going to be? Let's go to Israel. Those are reasons to run away. We should be running away. We should be running to. There are people who talk about how I'm a Zionist, but not Israel. I don't think that's a sufficient reason either, because pre-1948, there are many people who tried to go to Israel. Certainly it's easier today to go to Eretz Israel than before. I think there are many reasons. I want to share one perspective and something that tugs at me based on a Gemara. It's not such a well-known Gemara. It's a Gemara in the Darm, a shocking Gemara. The Gemara said that Ula was on his way up to Eretz Israel, and he was with some Chevra, and the Gemara says, "Kam chad shachte lechavre." One of the people with him got up and killed the other. Amar le Ula, Ya'is Abdi. He said to Ula, "Did I do good?" Now, if someone just murdered someone and he's with you and asks you that question, what's your response going to be? Well, Ula said, "Yeah, you did good. And you should hit him harder. Hasten his death." Ula felt a little bad that maybe he was mechazek a Russia. Maybe he gave Yashikach to a murderer. So he came to Rabbi Yochanan and he said, "Did I do the right thing?" Rabbi Yochanan said, "You did the right thing, because if not, he could have killed you too." Then Rabbi Yochanan, the Gemara says, Tamar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan was in shock. How could it be that there was a person who was angry? How could he be angry? What does that mean? Rashi explains, he was in Eretz Yisrael. If you're in Eretz Yisrael, you can't get angry. How is there a murder take place in Eretz Yisrael? It's Eretz Yisrael. It's a place where there's no anger. So the Gemara says it was before they crossed the Yarden. What does that mean? There's no anger in Eretz Yisrael? We have some chavra from Eretz Yisrael on this Zoom. They can tell you people in Israel get angry. What does that mean there's no anger in Eretz Yisrael? I think the explanation is as follows. When a person has real bitachon in Hashem, when a person understands that everything is from Hashem, for us, for our benefit, there's no room to get angry. What are you angry at? You're angry at Hashem? Hashem's taking care of you. Sefer HaChinuch writes this explicitly, that one who has significant, real bitachon, real trust and faith in Hashem, there's no room for anger. Eretz Yisrael is a place of bitachon. Eretz Yisrael is a place where you live with Hashem. You feel it. We all know the cab drivers who are not religious who say, Hodu Hashem, Baruch Hashem. It's so much more than that. People are there. You feel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You feel the Yom Tovim. You feel Shabbos. You feel HaKadosh Baruch Hu's presence. I think that's lacking here. We're finding ways to create that. We're finding ways to facilitate that, to trigger that. And some shuls and communities in Chutz La'aretz are doing a pretty good job. But you just try to get to that point of Eretz Yisrael where you're one with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. To live with that all the time is something that's incredible. That's better than the financial gains or even being with grandchildren, which I'm sure is a push for many of us. To live with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that comes from a pasuk we read in Devarim, that Eretz Yisrael is Eretz Asher Shem Elokecha Dorish Osah Tamid. It's a land that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always looking out for. And the Malbim on that pasuk says, it's Tachas HaHashgacha V'lo Shedorish Osah Pan Achas B'Shana. In Eretz Yisrael, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is looking out for it all the time. Every second, every minute. And when someone's looking out for you all the time, you start to look out for them and you feel them. To live with Hashem. That's what we're trying. That's what we're trying to do. That's our goal: to live every second, to have that bitachon, to walk hand in hand with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that's something that is unique to Eretz Yisrael. You can't find anywhere else. And hopefully, we'll be there. We'll be there together. We'll walk hand in hand with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and you should continue your journey in a positive way.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Malitzky. Let me pass the baton over to Rabbi Mischel of Ramat Beit Shemesh.
Hey, Shalom Aleichem, everybody. Good vach. Rosh Rav Sariel, Rabbi Malitzky, my dear friend. You could be sitting in New York eating Jerusalem pizza, and you could be sitting in Yerushalayim Eretz Kodesh eating Big Apple pizza. Everybody knows that facing Yerushalayim when we daven is just the beginning. It's just the beginning. It's just a physical expression of our yearning, of our hope. And you can be in Eretz Yisrael Yid, wherever you are. And I know that that's Rabbi Malitzky and this community that I've had the privilege of spending Shabbos with and getting to know so many of you. There's a consecration of yearning, and this wonderful get-together virtually is a real expression of that. So Kol HaKavod, Rabbi Bloom, and everyone who is participating and taking place in this, Main thing is our desire, our ratzon, our kavana, and this is really very beautiful. Thank you for including me. One of my heroes, one of the people that I look up to most, I don't know if you could see here, my background's blurred, but there's a big picture of him on the door here of our little Zoom room, office area, guest room, bomb shelter. That's what, we have a lot of things taking place at the same time in these Israeli homes, is the great Reb Shraga Feivel Mendelevich. The great Reb Shraga Feivel, who insisted on being called Mr. Mendelevich, but the Satmar Rav called him Mr., that he was a hidden one, who felt himself bound to Rav Kook in heart and soul, and spent day and night with the Satmar Rav and the Kloisenberger and so many other tzaddikim, was a dreamer, a builder. Say that every Tosfos or line of Torah learned in the United States of America is in his merit. Built the entire ecosystem of Mesiftas and Jewish Day School and Torah Masorah with Rabbi Kamenetsky, his Talmud, Mesifta Torah Vadas, Beis Medrash Elyon. Anyways, he was just a great person. And he was an Eretz Yisrael Dekiyid. He saw himself as a Jew who was a man of Eretz Yisrael. He participated in the building of Eretz Yisrael. He always planned on going, and really lived his life as a Jew who was drawing from and connected to the land. He once said that living in Chutz La'aretz is like being a polar bear in the Bronx Zoo. You know, you go to the Bronx Zoo and you go to the polar bear enclosure, and there they have this, like, you know, cave they built, and they pipe in and pump in this freezing cold air, and they even import Arctic fishicles, these little fish frozen in canisters, and the polar bears kind of claw at them, and they put in like this ice formation in there, and they swim around in the circles over there, and they feel very at home, and it seems to be great, hunky-dory for the polar bears. It's cold, and they eat their fish, and they have their little icicles. But anybody who goes to Bronx Zoo to enjoy the different enclosures and animals and environments and habitats, like, you realize that if you take a step back, another step back, another step back, it's like 94 degrees, it's humid, there are people speaking Spanish, you're in the Bronx, there's like Puerto Rican music playing in the background and graffiti around, you're like, this doesn't make sense, this isn't the place for a polar bear. It's like not, a Yid living in the United States or living in Chutz La'aretz, it's like a polar bear in the Bronx Zoo. We have pizza stores and mikvahs and yeshivas and ecosystem of day schools that he built, and beautiful shuls and thriving communities, but something about it just doesn't feel natural, rooted, healthy. Like, there's something about it which is built neck up, almost like, you know, ground up. The roots don't really have sustainability, and that's kind of what this is about. I mean, is this recognition that, hey, we take 3 steps back when we daven and we see Jewish history in a big picture, and we were in shul this Shabbos and we heard Parshas Kisavo Vaya Ki Tavo La'aretz, when you come to the land of Israel. And the Orach Chaim HaKadosh says it's a lashon of simcha v'haya. There's something joyful and something positive and optimistic and big about being in the land of Israel, and something natural, which is joyful, even with the difficulties and curses and tribulations and hardships that are listed, and the war and the suffering and the price tag of living here. There's something that makes it worthwhile, purposeful, where there's a vision, because there's something which is sustainable and natural and long-term, and something which is respectful of Jewish history and the Jewish future, something which takes into account all these haftorahs that we keep hearing about week after week since Tisha B'Av, all these haftorahs of Nechama, of rebuilding, of Yeshayahu and Zechariah, that seem to be very real here in Eretz Yisrael. And that's, I guess, what today is about, hearing real details, real information from real people, about real forward-thinking planning, about facing a future toward being not just Eretz Yisrael Dika Jews, but moving the ball forward for us, for our families, for our community, for our children, for our future, for Am Yisrael, and attaching ourselves to that vision of connecting to the joy and the meaning and the vision, the purpose of laying down roots in the Holy Land, of coming to Eretz Yisrael, not just as a parsha that we read in Highland Park, in Edison, and Teaneck, and the 5 towns, and France, and God knows wherever else Torah was read all over the world, but where it could be lived in its most holistic and natural, aspirational way, God willing. Like Rabbi Malitzky said, Echad hanolad ba, someone who's here or is born here, The Gemara tells us it applies equally to someone who desires to be here and imagines themselves or their future here, who yearns toward being here, who imagines being restoring a natural, healthy, sustainable, long-term Jewish life in Eretz Israel, which is what unites all of us. So while we're in the Big Apple eating Jerusalem pizza and thinking about Eretz Israel and drinking Israeli wine at Kiddush and trying to attach ourselves to the playlist and to consecrate yearning and wanting and being here eventually, I'm just grateful for the opportunity to be a part of a time of history and such a special virtual gathering of yearning Jews who are trying to put down roots and get some concrete information. That's the main thing about today, for families, for education, for homes, for employment, where we can put down some real roots and get out of the enclosure of Gullus and really thrive in building a Torah society for the future of Am Yisrael here in Eretz Yisrael. So thank you all for being here. Hashem should bless you on your journeys. You should see great revealed good and Shefa. Even in Tufshin Pei Dalet, it should already happen. It should be turned around for good. So Batzlacha on your journey. Keep facing toward Eretz Yisrael. Keep thinking about it, dreaming about it, davening over it, and God willing, manifesting very soon. Batzlacha.
Thank you very much, Rav Yehuda. So one of the questions that has always come up is healthcare in Eretz Yisrael. And we have the opportunity to hear from Dr. Eliana Aaron to talk about healthcare in Eretz Yisrael, especially as it compares to healthcare in the United States.
Okay. Just turning on my timer. Okay. So thank you very much for having me. Healthcare is not something you can cover in 7 minutes. However, I'd like to touch on a few points that will cover some of the concerns people have, some of the questions that frequently come up. I've been working with Olim since I made Aliyah 22 years ago. So healthcare in Israel is socialized medicine. So the advantages of it are it's not expensive relative to America, let's say. Everybody is covered. Homeless people have insurance. Everybody has insurance who is a resident of Israel. And it's available anywhere in the country. The disadvantage is that, like all socialized systems, there are some shortages. There are long waits to see certain kinds of specialists. There are also some disparities between people, healthcare in the center of the country versus the periphery. So, and also, when you come to Israel, you have to choose your Kupat Cholim. So we're going to talk about that, I think, as the third point, but that very much depends on some of the other things that you're going to talk about today, which is where you're going to live and what your specific needs are. Some people move to Israel with pre-existing health issues, sometimes very serious pre-existing health issues, and some people move to Israel and they don't have any health issues. So understanding the system, being able to make decisions on where you want to go get your care, whether you need private coverage or not, and what that implication is, which basically is it gives you more options to cover you in the event that you want to select a doctor or cut the line, but of course that costs more money. Medications are also subsidized, but not over-the-counter medications. So the over-the-counter medications are actually much more expensive in Israel, and the prescriptions are much cheaper. So in terms of the cost, there is an outlay of money that you have. Through the public system, that outlay is quite small relative to what the outlay of money is in the United States. But when you're looking at the system in general, you'll know that people here do spend money on private care because sometimes you need to shortcut the system. Not everybody can afford to do that, but that is something that people do. There's someone's ringing in the background. Okay. Anyway, so in terms of the cost, it's much reduced from what you pay in a private health system like in the United States. And there's a price you pay for that, which is part of the socialized system. There is excellent healthcare to be had here, but like all healthcare systems, you need to be on top of it. You need to, ask questions and have a provider that you feel comfortable with. Part of what we do in my company, I have a company called Care, is we actually help Olim and advocate for them and teach them how to be independent in the healthcare system. So that's part of our goal. In terms of choosing a health provider, what I'll say is that different kupot, there are 4 kupot holim, okay? And they are strong in certain geographic parts of the country. Each one has areas, geographic areas where they have more resources and more availability. And there are parts of the country where it's a totally different, there's a more different dominant kupat cholim. So the kupa that you choose should partially depend on where you live. It should also partially depend if you come in with pre-existing conditions. It should also depend on the type of specialist you need and who in that specialist is the best person for managing your particular health issue. So the 4 kupot are Klalit, which is the biggest one, Maccabi, which is the second biggest one, Muchadet, and Leumit. And they each have advantages and disadvantages. Some have more English-speaking providers than others. And again, a lot of that has to do with your geography. So it's important to network with people who are there in the community you're moving to, but also to figure out what your personal needs are and your personal preferences and try to adapt that properly. In the 1 minute I have left, I'm just going to say that when you move to Israel, you should always move with your medical records. The system here is such that there is a way to get those records into the system through your family doctor. Your family doctor is your gateway to your insurance. But what you need is you need to also bring a certain amount of medication. One of the things that we recommend is bringing 3 months, if possible, of medication with you when you come, because sometimes there could be shortages here. Part of socialized medicine sometimes is shortages. So making sure that you don't have gaps in your coverage is very important. And that just happened to somebody that we're taking care of. They didn't bring enough medication, and it creates this stress that no one needs. So I recommend doing that. And I think that's my time. So thank you so much. And if anyone has questions, you can get in touch with me afterwards. Okay. Rafi, you're muted.
Paul, are you there? Or Paul might be frozen. Okay, let's move on now to Dr. Agatstein, if you can take the mic and talk about raising a family in Israel.
Sure. First of all, kol hakavod, good for all of you who are taking this next step. I really wanted to focus on a couple of things. I'm not going to get to everything that's on the screen, but firstly, kol hakavod. Why do I think, and so many of us believe, that there's such a positive element in raising children in Israel? So I wanted to just bring out some of the points. First of all, like Rabbi Mischel said before, I think it is a fulfillment of so many different prophecies, and you walk the land with your family and you tour and you see in front of you Jewish history unfolding, and it really is the fulfillment of so many of those prophecies, and it's just a way of life. So from a religious perspective, obviously, I think, definitely raising children, there's a huge benefit. Secondly, something that I see with my children, I just want to preface, I'll tell you 2 seconds about me, which is that B'li'ayin hara baruch Hashem. I live in Yerushalayim. I have 6 children, ranging from 15 months all the way up to almost 19, and everything in between. We moved to Israel 6 years ago, and I say that because I moved with children who were older, considered somewhat older, meaning my oldest was 12. So all that I'm saying and all of the different information that I'm giving over is sort of influenced by the different ages that I personally have experienced through my children. One thing that I've seen with my own children is a tremendous cohesiveness in their Jewish identity. Meaning that we walk through the streets, here in Yerushalayim, but in so many cities all around Israel. And my children are, we're talking about Rehov Ramban and Ben Maimon and Rehov Kibbutz Galiot, and all of these things are at the tip of our tongue. And it's just such a gift that it's just a way of life. And our Jewish identity and what we believe and our pro-Israel, beliefs, it all comes into one. It's expressed every day, all day, in everything that we do and in all of the interactions that we have as a family. And it doesn't feel like there's any real separation between all of that and then the day-to-day life that we live. And even when we, for example, at the beginning of the rainy season around Sukkot, when we see the first rains here in Israel, like we're all, when we say Mashiv Haruach Umorid Hageshem, we're so thankful that we're seeing our tefillot come alive. So there's a tremendous cohesiveness. Another benefit, I believe, is really that children here are raised with a tremendous amount of independence and a confidence. So many children have the capability of, getting on and off the buses, the light rail, the rakevet, the train. My own children, in the 6 short years that we've been here, can traverse the entire country from top to bottom. They've learned, how to haggle and what to do, and it's really incredible. They know how to build a tent and to take tuna and make tuna meushenet. Just it's incredibly wholesome. And lastly, I think here in Israel, something that I personally see that might differ from wherever you live is really that I think children are meant to be children. So people will discuss this later on in terms of the school system, but especially for elementary school days are shorter here in Israel. And depending on if you're within the Haredi sector or if you're in the Dati Leumi sector or if you're in the secular sector, so things could sort of differ from one to the other. But there's a huge push for children to be involved in extracurricular activities, really in all of those different sectors. For example, the Dati Leumi sector, once a week, students get out extra early, and the expectation is that they're going to be going to chugim, to after-school clubs. They really want children to be well-rounded, and in general, one thing that you will notice if you make the move is that there really is very minimal homework, generally speaking, in really elementary school, especially when you compare it to what's going on in the United States. There's a lot to talk about with regard to raising a family. I'm sure they can give out my email address, my phone number, or my WhatsApp if anybody else has any other questions. But I want to just say one thing, which is that when you're deciding to choose a community, I think it's important to note sort of, for your own children, do you think that they would thrive better in a city environment? Do you think they would thrive better in a yeshuv environment? And certainly taking into account sort of the hashkafot of your family and what your religious inclination is. And then there's so many organizations that are on this webinar right now that can certainly help you in terms of if you know who you are, then sort of weeding out, well, what type of community is appropriate for me based on your age and based on your religious outlook. And then from there, typically people will connect with others and have a sense in terms of also schooling for children and extracurricular activities and sort of help their children to socialize in those environments. Anyway, that is definitely while standing on one foot. But if you have any other questions, please definitely reach out. Thank you, everyone, and b'hatzlacha with your whole decision and your whole move.
Great, thank you so much. We're now going to move on to education, and Rav Freedman, who has just joined us, is up.
Shalom Aleichem. Thank you so much. Thank you for hosting again. It's amazing to go a week week to week and meet with people who are inspired to come back home, and it's amazing to be a part of it. I came here 25 years ago with my wife, who just got married. I came for a year of Kollel, and the thinking back then was come for a year or two of Kollel. We wanted to go to the Grus Kollel, etc. We ended up going to the Mivaseret Kollel, and you wanted to come here for a few years and then head back to the States. Why? Because once you have school-age children, where in the world you're going to send them to Cheder here in Eretz Yisrael? We needed American-style chinuch. Chinuch, warm, caring, nurturing, midos, and derech eretz. Obviously, limud haTorah is the most important, but you need limud chol, secular studies as well. It didn't exist 25 years ago when we came back here. We were here in Eretz Yisrael. So Baruch Hashem, we decided, hey, if it doesn't exist yet, why don't we be the ones to do it? So us and other people got very involved. And Baruch Hashem, over the last 25 years, the Metzias has changed. Not only is there chinuch in Eretz Yisrael for the American Olah, or the English-speaking Olah, but the reason to make Aliyah is because of the chinuch here in Eretz Yisrael. The chinuch here in Eretz Yisrael is fantastic. It has to be done right. You have to do it with your eyes open. You have to educate yourself. But just in terms of what your sons, I run a boys' school, Darchei Noam, Talmud Torah Darchei Noam, and Ramat Beit Shemesh, just in terms of the yeda, just in terms of the knowledge of what your boys will have growing up here in Eretz Yisrael, the way they know Chumash, the way they know Mishnayos, the way they could easily read in 3rd and 4th grade, Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, or easily read through a Mishnah Berurah because they speak Hebrew, they speak the language. It's just phenomenal, the amount of Mishnayos they know, the way they can learn Gemara at a very young age, just because they live in Eretz Yisrael, they speak the language, they read the language, they're able to learn that much more. And also we see there's a big emphasis on Libud Torah here in Eretz Yisrael, and a much big emphasis also on the Kedusha and Tara of living in Eretz Yisrael, much less involved in the Gashmias and secular influences that their counterparts have in the States. Hope I'm not insulting anybody, but the boys here that grew up in Eretz Yisrael are much less involved in that which their counterparts back in the States are exposed to. So obviously, everything is done within reason. Everything is done, Be'ezus Hashem, smartly. So if you do want to come to Eretz Yisrael and you want to know that there are educational opportunities for your children, where your children, as English-speaking Olim, will be received and welcomed and nurtured, and they will have their needs met academically, socially, spiritually, in every single way, you should be rest assured that there are moistus now in Eretz Yisrael that accommodate the American Olah, the North American Olah, the English-speaking Olah, and allow them to flourish here in Eretz Yisrael. Not just in, obviously, Ramat Beit Shemesh is a very, very popular place, but also Yerushalayim, other places. But you do need to do a few things. Number one, you need to do your research. Do absolutely make a pilot trip. Make a pilot trip and speak to people ahead of time and know which schools you should be looking at. Don't just look at one school, I don't think. Look at a number of schools. Meet with the principals. See the school. Try to figure out if the school matches that which you're looking for. Also, figure out where you are hashkafically. Aliyah is hard enough. Do not also make Aliyah and then also move hashkafically within that which your family is used to. If you are a certain hashkafa back in America, well, guess what? You could find that here too as well. Try to match yourself up. Don't make a move hashkafically as you also make Aliyah. It's way too hard. Match yourself up with who you are. Be proud of it. No worries. And figure out the school or the school system that works for you. Do the research. Speak to people who are in the schools. Don't rely on one thing. Do not show up to Eretz Yisrael after your Nefesh B'Nefesh flight without a spot in a school. Make sure that you work out these things ahead of time, that you know which school your kids are going to. Your Aliyah, the success of your Aliyah will be based on the success of your children in school. If your children are happy in school, you will be happy. And if God forbid your kids are miserable, you're, God forbid, going to be miserable. So make sure that you do that research and figure out which school is for your children and get the spots in the schools that are for you, and know that the schools are here for you and they want to make sure that they can nurture your child and receive them and educate them. But just know another thing, the schools in Eretz Yisrael are much more bare bones. Where you're back in America, it could be that you're paying $15,000 or $20,000 a year tuition, and you send your sons to a school that has a principal and a vice principal and a head of school and a Kodesh principal and an English principal and a school psychologist and a school social worker and a school nurse and a resource room director. Well, say goodbye to all of those. You'll pay here $2,000 or $3,000 a year for tuition, but your school is going to be here now just so much more bare bones, and they're not going to necessarily have the resources they used to coming back from America. So when you do come to Eretz Yisrael, come open-handed, solution-oriented. There might be challenges for your child along the way, and when your child does have challenges, come to the school solution-oriented. Say, how can I pay for extra Ulpan? Can I pay for extra tutoring? Can I get them into a Big Brother program? I'm happy to sponsor it. Come open-handed with the solution in hand and work with the school, not against the school, to make sure that your child is accommodated as best as possible. And then, B'ezras Hashem, you will have that success that you've dreamed of. Lost you for a second.
I think that's in the show.
And with you. So to summarize, the chinuch is the reason to make Aliyah. Place yourself correctly through proper research on a pilot trip. Do and speak to the right people on the ground. Make sure that you have the time to speak to the schools in order to find out which are best for your children. And once you do arrive here, partner with your child's school in a respectful, solution-oriented way to make sure that they are accommodated as best as can be. And B'ezras Hashem, we look forward to greeting you here in Eretz Yisrael. If you do end up looking at Ramat Beit Shemesh, so Talmud Torah Darkinom, Ramat Beit Shemesh, we'd love to meet with you, and we look forward to seeing you here in Eretz Yisrael. B'atzlacha.
Thank you, Rabbi. I think we lost Paul. He's having some technical difficulties, so I'll help you just move things along. So Ariela, you're up.
Hi, my name is Ariela Davis, and I'm just gonna join on to that although I'm speaking about the Aliyah of older kids, one of the best things about Aliyah, and I'm a raving Zionist, I want to make Aliyah my whole life, but my son, seeing his chinuch, he actually doesn't go to that Talmud Torah, he goes to a different one called Moriah, which is fantastic, but seeing my son know more than I do about karbanos, about so many things already when he was 8, number one is humbling, but number two is definitely reason to make Aliyah. Chinuch is unbelievable here. But let's talk a little bit about making Aliyah with teenagers. I guess I've had the experience of seeing all different ages make Aliyah, coming with teenagers, coming with younger kids, and then Baruch Hashem, last year my parents made Aliyah. So I've gotten really to see the experience of everyone making Aliyah. My parents like to debate with me, who has it harder? Parents who are coming in their 60s who don't really understand the medical system versus teenagers. Teenagers totally win because teenagers are difficult enough when they're at home. So I want to talk a little bit about what that's like to accompany teenagers on their journey. I made Aliyah myself with teenagers a little over 4 years ago. My oldest was going into high school at the time, into 9th grade. I had one going into 7th grade as well. But I'm also the menahelet here in Beit Shemesh of a school called Ulpan Orly, which is a school that really works with kids who are Olim. Some of them are making Aliyah straight into our school. Some of them grew up here and went to different kinds of schools, but really have that very Anglo-tarbut, as we say, that Anglo culture, and just haven't found themselves so comfortable in other schools. So basically what our school does is we really provide an Anglo-friendly, warm environment for the kids to really enable them to find their place, find their inspiration, to grow in a way that's comfortable for them. So I just want to talk about that for a second. And that's one area that I have to do with being a parent, being a principal. I also run a number of WhatsApp groups for people in the process of making Aliyah. So anybody who's interested, please reach out. And I also run a group called From Faces of Aliyah, which you can find on Facebook and also on Instagram, where we interview people who have made Aliyah. And all of the different areas that I'm involved in, I never try to sugarcoat Aliyah. Aliyah is the most wonderful thing in the world. And also it could be incredibly challenging. You will all have your moments dealing with bureaucracy where you get a lot of scar having to deal with Israeli bureaucracy. When they say Eretz Yisrael niknei b'yisurim, they're talking about the bureaucracy. With that said, there's also tremendous amounts of school you get. And really, I've spoken to about 20 families who are making Aliyah next summer. I got several emails today of people who are like, hi, call me at the beginning of the school year. I don't necessarily have time to talk to people who are making Aliyah next year already, but so many people are coming. All my college roommates have come in the past 2 years, rabbis, principals, so many different people I'm speaking with. If you're still in America and you're not sure if you should come, you're going to be the last ones there if you don't come. I'm just telling you, we speak to so many people. So definitely consider coming. But I think it's very, very important to be upfront about some challenges you can anticipate in Aliyah. And then you talk about ways to deal with it. So here are some challenges about teen Aliyah. Number one, the language. If it's difficult for an adult to come and they're like, stumbling over their Hebrew, even if you have good Hebrew, it's not Israeli Hebrew. For a teenager, it's definitive. It's something about their identity. And they feel like, oh my gosh, my Hebrew isn't like somebody else's. They sit in the classroom. They could have been the smartest kid in the classroom in America. They come to Israel and all of a sudden they don't know the terms in math. They don't know the terms of biology. And they feel like they lost their identity. I was a smart kid and now who am I? I don't know what's going on. The culture, the Israeli culture is very different than the American culture. In Israel, Chalila v'chas, the last thing you ever want to be is a friar. You never want to be that one who's taken advantage of. And the Israelis know that well. And the American kids sometimes feel like, they're pushed aside. It's a different culture and it's difficult for them. The accent, the race, right? It sounds so silly, but when you're a teenager and everything is about your self-esteem and someone else is rattling off in Hebrew and they have that race and you don't even want to say anything because your race sounds so different. The class sizes are much, much larger here in Israel. When we first made Aliyah, my son went into a class of 42 boys and it was on Zoom because it was Corona. And the Rav kept saying, I don't know why your son's Hebrew isn't good. And I'm like, because we made Aliyah a month ago. But sometimes when the classes are so large, kids can fall through the cracks and teachers don't know, did they come, did they not come, what's going on with them because the classes are so large. Teenagers leaving friends behind, for teenagers, their friends are their lives. So to leave their friends behind can be very, very difficult and traumatic for kids. The classes here are very much focused towards the Bagrut, which is the matriculation exams. And sometimes classes are not so inspiring. I've had so many kids tell me Torah isn't inspiring in Israel because it's so much focused on the Bagruts. And also hashkafic boxes can be different here in Israel. So why should you come anyway? The reason you should come anyway is because life in Eretz Yisrael is so rewarding. It's just the most, I'm like tearing up just thinking about this. It's really the most amazing thing. Seeing children here, they have different values here than they have in America. In America, everything is about your cell phone and technology and what brand name you have and all of these different things. Here in Israel, kids, we just saw when the war broke out, no matter what people were doing, they left their lives behind and they ran to the front lines to defend our country. And it wasn't just adults, it was the kids of the iPad generation, the TikTok generation. They were all there to live the values that they're learning, and they're learning it in school. I'll never forget hearing Rabbi Rosner speak. He lives in a community next to mine. And he said, on October 7th, I realized all the training, all the rabbis that I was so close with, and all the yeshivas that I had always been in before, it didn't prepare me for October 7th. But my kids who grew up in Israel and all the yeshivas they had been through and all the values that they had imbued when they were in school, that prepared them for October 7th. It's a different kind of value system here in Israel. It's wholesome. It's about Medinat Yisrael. It's about Eretz Yisrael. It's about Am Yisrael. And there's nothing like it. There is no substitute. I've taught many places in America. There is nothing like kids who are being raised in Israel. Kids who are raised with resilience that they don't have in America. We're like, literally, we woke up this morning. I feel like every week I say this, I have something else to say, but this morning we woke up, so there were rockets in the north and kids went to school and you just go about your life here. There's such a level of resilience, which is so good for kids. So let me just talk about it for a second, about Olpanat Orly, my school, and how we address some of the concerns that I brought up before. So Olpanat Orly is a school for grades 7 to 12 for girls. Again, as I mentioned, we have girls who are straight off the boat. Just in our 7th grade alone this year, we have 7 new Olim. But we have a lot of girls who grew up here who are just more happy being in a small, warm environment. Our classes are smaller. We have between 10 to 15 kids in a class. So we have a lot more attention. I know every kid's name, which is something a little bit unusual in some schools here. Our staff is all Dusfati. They teach in Hebrew for most classes towards the Bagrut, but they also speak English. They're able to connect with the girls. They're able to connect. They have programs, and some of them in English, in their own language, their own culture. So that's something that's inspiring for the kids. For kids who are old enough to take a Bagrut in English, and some kids can do a Bagrut in English, depending on what grade they come. We have an Olim Maslul, which means that there are Bagrut subjects that are focused towards Olim, and we teach some of those classes in English because they're eligible to take the Bagrut in English, and we really cater towards those kids who are coming. We offer hakalot for the Bagrut. Every school should really offer the leniencies that are enabled for Olim, but because we have so many Olim, we really know exactly what to do to help kids to be successful under Bagrut. Almost all of our girls come from an Anglo background, so even if many of the classes are in Hebrew, during recess, they have other kids they can immediately connect with and immediately make friends because of commonality. And they come in, they make friends very, very quickly. I think my time's up. I actually have to run to a meeting. But if anybody has any questions, I speak to people making Aliyah all the time. Bezrat Hashem, hope to get back to you soon. And come to Israel. It's worth every hardship. It's worth it.
Great. Thanks so much, Ariela. All right, now we're going to turn it over to Yigal Marcus, who's going to talk about NCSY.
Everybody, it's a great pleasure being with you. I'm actually, to my chagrin, in Shmutz La'aretz in Florida, although it's nice here. But I do want to take a few minutes to talk about your teen kids, or kids who will eventually become teens. I was once asked a question by my wife's uncle: what's the difference between an immigrant and a refugee? Now you'll think about it and you'll say, well, an immigrant is somebody coming, and refugees fleeing. It's true, but the answer is time. Time. Never in the history of the Jewish people have we been happy citizens of a country, and it didn't end in us being refugees. And so the decision that you have to make is, do we want to come to Israel komemiyut la'artzenu, or do you want to come as refugees? Now, the reason why I bring that up in the context of your youth is because when you make Aliyah, you could be coming to something or running from something. And how you position that with your youth is going to make a big difference. If you're running away from something, their attitude is going to be different than, no, you're coming to something that's very special. Now, I've in my personal history, I've been chairman of NCSY for, I guess, I don't know, 7 or 8 years now. But prior to that, as a volunteer thing, I was a coach for 21 years. And one of the things that I learned as a coach is that the most important influences in your children's life, aside from parents and siblings, of course, are their peers. Are their peers, their friends. NCSY Israel is actually, we realize that, always have. NCSY in America is very different than NCSY Israel. Our mandate is different. But with the realization that your peers are critically important in your development, we've created a culture and a program that has really inspired our children, first and foremost, by inspiring the people around them. NCSY Israel now has many, many hundreds of Olim who are part of it. We have 5 primary chapters in Efrat, Jerusalem, Beit Shemesh, Chashmodim and Modi'in, that's like 1, and Ra'anana. And we're growing. But the magic to our success really is about creating a culture of where these precious, wonderful teens can be proud of who they are and celebrate who they are with people who have gone through the same exact thing as they have, led by advisors who also have gone through the same exact thing, who have served in the army, Shirut Leumi, and are incredibly strong role models for our youth. That's the model, and it's been wildly successful. This year, the OU, obviously our parent organization, has increased funding to NCSY Israel by 500% from last year. Mitch Ader, who's the president, is a good friend of mine. And I first met him years ago when he first became. I've gotten to know him over the years, but he became president 2 years ago, and I met him again, and I said, Mitch, how are you? What are you going to do with your administration? And he pointed and he said, Israel. OU is investing in Israel because it's the future. Period. And in the wake of this war, the threats and the challenges facing our youth are greater than ever. But it's also the greatest opportunity that we have. And so they've increased funding by 500%. And where we're going today is we have NCSY, which is a multi-gender, guys and girls together. I shouldn't say multi-gender. That's probably so politically incorrect. Guys and girls together. But we also have, for the first time, separate gender programming that's more Torani. And so no matter who your teen is, whether they're a little more Torani or less Torani, we have programming and amazingly inspirational platform where we get close to them, we inspire them. And ultimately, when you look at the product, what comes out on the other side, these are teens who are proud to be who they are, proud of their culture, proud of who they were as Olim. Too often people say, oh, you got to acclimate. You have to kind of reject your background. No, we embrace it. You're Olim. Americans have, and Olim in general, have a lot to add to this country. We embrace it. We inspire them. They then move on into the army as super proud members of Klal Yisrael from Dati, hopefully, and just really, really excited to contribute what they can to our country. And so, aside from education, we all know that the chevra they fall into is going to be critical. And what we've done is created a safe space for that chevra to be inspired, to grow, and to really embrace who they are. We meet them where they are. And when meeting our teens where they are, we can inspire them to grow to even greater heights. I'm going to stop here. If you need to talk, I'm happy to help and talk. You can get my contact information from Rafi or from Paul. And Mr. Shem, you guys, you're all making a great decision by coming here. Come commute l'Artzenu. Be immigrants. Don't be refugees, not in your mind, not physically. The sooner the better. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you, Yigal. We're now going to move on to Daniella Kay from Gvahim.
Hi, everyone. My name is Danielle. I work for Gvahim. We're an organization that assists Olim and potential Olim in everything related to employment. So we know that, and I can speak also from personal experience. I made Aliyah 8 years ago, and I remember being incredibly nervous and anxious around this whole subject of finding a job and how would I do it and what my resources were prior to making Aliyah. And I made it on my own, but it doesn't have to be that way. There are a lot of different levels of support in place. And in Gvahim, we do several things to assist you all, but first I'll talk a little bit about some general statistics of the job market. So, hold on one second. Okay. So first, a little bit about Gvahim. So in 2023 alone, we provided support to over 450 Olim and their families who made Aliyah successfully. And we have ongoing support to over 670 potential Olim planning to make Aliyah until the end of the year. These are numbers that are absolutely wonderful to see. I think especially in the reality that we're living in, and we're really able to provide them with everything that they need in terms of navigating the typical questions that come with finding a job in Israel. So there are a couple of things that you need to know about the Israeli market. The first is that things are different. So I'm going a little bit out of order with what my talking points were, but I promise it all makes sense. So there are a couple of things that you need to know about the Israeli market. First of all, it's an extremely small country. Organizational structure tends to be pretty horizontal. So unless you're in a larger organization, it's not typically as complicated. The size of companies is depends on where you are, but some of it's smaller. And it's also a relationship-oriented culture. We see this in how people find jobs in Israel. It's more critical to have a large network and be able to leverage that network in your job search. A fun fact is 65% of positions in the local Israeli market are found through personal connections, through chaver mavi chaver, which is a personal, just having a recommendation or being able to ask somebody to send in your CV on their behalf. And there's a wide dispersion of salaries. There are two parallel markets, the first being the public market and the second being the private. Israel is obviously known as the startup nation, so I think you all can understand that. Some general statistics about salaries. So the minimum salary as of April 2024 was $1,500. Okay, that's not to say that that's the average salary. The average salary is $3,820. So obviously different than what you might be used to. But these are averages. Depending on how much experience you have, your salary could be higher than this. We also in May had a 3.7 unemployment rate. Things have changed a little bit, I think, with that, but these are the most updated statistics that we have. And in terms of the different types of employment, just so you understand, when you're looking for a job, most people will be, unless you're a teacher or an administrator or something like that, it's 2.8 million people are in the private sector. This includes obviously high tech or other types of companies, and 1.5 million people in the population are working in the public sector. So 2/3 private, 1/3 public approximately. In terms of, hold on one second. In terms of some typical challenges with kind of orienting yourself and the ways that Gvayim assists you with overcoming them, a lot of your questions that I'm sure are coming up for all of you about your personal experiences, we invest the time in making sure that you have one-on-one Aliyah advisory sessions. So you, by joining the Gvayim Pre-Aliyah program, which is completely free of charge, you receive 3 one-on-one sessions, and these could be about a number of topics, depending on what you need. It could be about topics that we've heard today, such as healthcare, education, higher education, communities. Those are all things that we work on. And we work with you to create a customized Aliyah plan tailored to your specific needs. And with this, you also get 3 expert consultations where you get advice, on your Aliyah journey. We spoke about earlier the need for a very broad network, which is one of the things that Gvayim assists you in building. Upon registering for the program, you also gain access to an internal platform called the Gvayim Network, where we have more than 5,000 members, many including employers and also Gvayim alumni that work in a lot of different companies that you might be interested in applying to, that are willing to open the door for you based on the fact that you are an Oleh or Olah, or potential Oleh or Olah, and it's a resource that grows with you as you proceed in this path of making Aliyah. And finally, we have a language-specific WhatsApp group. So all of the services that we provide are sent to you through this WhatsApp group, so you know what events are happening and what resources you have access to. Finally, once you do make Aliyah, our support for you doesn't end. That means that we're here really to help you actually navigate your job search, not just give you the general information. And then once you get here, try to figure it out on your own. So we actually provide a full, comprehensive approach to your job search that begins with webinars on preparing your CV, and if you need to prepare a portfolio, what that might look like, how to, or if to, receive additional training or verify your certifications or degrees, what exactly that process looks like. And if you need to repackage, we also assist you with that through a series of webinars, and also 3 one-on-one HR consultations to orient you to the Israeli market. After you complete those consultations, you then, through the Gvayim network, receive access to an Israeli mentor from your field who assists you in your job search until you secure a job in your field. And we also have a wonderful placement team that will send you relevant opportunities based on your profile while you're in your job search. So the Gvayim approach to finding employment is really pretty comprehensive. I know I skipped around a little bit, but these are the types of support that we provide, and it kind of puts everything in one place so you can understand where you're positioned, what gaps you have or potential gaps you have based on your experience or where you are currently in the market, and then how to make that transferable to really set yourself up for a successful Aliyah. So with that being said, the name of the organization is on my background, Gvayim, Gvahim. Gvayim means heights. And we really are here to help you reach new heights and to see you succeed in your Aliyah. So we hope to see you all in Eretz Israel. And Shanida B'Surot Tovot. Shana Tova.
Thank you, Danielle. Thanks so much. Okay, the next topic is the topic I'm going to actually speak about. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Rafi Shulman, and I'm the co-founder of Olim Advisors. We started Olim Advisors back in 2016 because we recognized there's so many people in the US and around the world who want to make Aliyah, who have been dreaming about making Aliyah, and for whatever reason just haven't moved forward. Very often people feel that the process is overwhelming, it's challenging, and we believe that if you can come up with the right plan and if you get support from all the organizations that are available, you can actually make Aliyah. And not only can you make Aliyah and survive in Israel, but the key is to get to Israel and thrive. And so that's what we've been doing, thank God, for the past 8 years, and helped thousands of people make Aliyah and adjust to life in Israel. As you can imagine, one of the biggest decisions and factors in your successful Aliyah is choosing the right community, right? There's so many options out there. There's literally dozens and dozens of communities and cities and neighborhoods that you can move to. And the advice that we give to people is, first and foremost, have a budget in mind, right? Because your budget very often will dictate where you can and where you cannot move to. For example, if you want to live in Yerushalayim, but you can't afford to buy an apartment there, it doesn't make sense to do that. Or if you want to live in Tel Aviv or some of the other expensive cities. Now, if you're going to rent, which a lot of Olim do when they make Aliyah and then maybe buy down the road, then the difference in rentals between expensive cities and the ones that are more affordable is not as big, and it gives you more flexibility. However, if you do want to buy either when you make Aliyah or a bit down the road, then that's something that you should definitely keep in mind. The second thing that we recommend is for people to make a list of preferences of what you want in a community. And what I'm referring to is really thinking about Israel, moving to Israel as a new chapter in your life. It's an exciting time. It's really an opportunity for you to live a life that maybe you've wanted to live for many years. So for example, that might mean living by the beach, or maybe it means living in an Anglo community, or maybe it means living up north or down south. There's so many different options, so many different preferences. And do you want to live in a community that's more religious, or maybe it's more of a mix, or maybe it's secular? These are all preferences that everybody has. And what we recommend to people is make a list of preferences, and it can be long. You don't have to limit it to 5 or 6 preferences. Again, this is your opportunity to plan your next chapter. And so make that list and then prioritize it, because in all likelihood, you're not going to find one community, one city that checks all the boxes. And so you have to be flexible, and you have to think to yourself, and whether you're coming by yourself or with a spouse, with kids, you have to really think about what are the preferences that are most important. What are the preferences that you really need to have in order for you and your family to live a happy life in Israel? And that kind of then will help you get to the next step, which is trying to narrow it down, trying to find out and make a list of communities, somewhere between 5 to 10 communities that at least on paper could be very suitable for you. What we recommend to people once they get to the stage is really to be open-minded and consider all options. It used to be a few years ago that Olim moved to the Anglo bubbles, as we call them, the large cities with the large Anglo communities, Ramat Bet Shemesh, Yerushalayim, Ra'anana, Modi'in. Those are probably the 6 or 7 biggest, the communities that have the biggest Anglo communities. And there's definitely a benefit to doing that. As other presenters have mentioned beforehand, you can go into a community where there's support for the kids in the schools, where you don't necessarily feel like, out of place a little bit. People speak English, and, it's an easier transition. Having said that, there are a lot of amazing cities and communities that aren't necessarily the Anglo bubbles, but still have so much to offer. A lot of them have Anglo communities and shuls, maybe they're a little smaller, but still enough for you to create your social network, for your kids to feel comfortable. And so what we recommend to people is consider cities like, for example, Rehovot and Rishon, Nahariya, that aren't recognized as these big Anglo communities, but still have so much to offer and so many aspects of what people are looking for, that you should consider it. And then on the other end of the spectrum, there are also the up-and-coming communities in Yishuvim that are much smaller and maybe have a smaller Anglo community, but something that you might fit in just perfectly. Not everybody wants to go to a big city. Some people want to go to a small community where they can help build that community. And so there are definitely opportunities. There are definitely new communities, new neighborhoods that are now popping up. And so it's so important that you spend the time and the effort as you're going through and planning this decision and researching to really consider all options. And then you get to the last point here on the slide, which is doing a pilot trip. And I can't recommend enough the importance of doing a pilot trip, because it gives you an opportunity to see with your own eyes, to meet people in person and really get a sense, get an opportunity to get a sense of what the schools are like, what the communities are like. You might walk through a community or through a neighborhood and just feel that it's not the right fit for you, not the right vibe for you. And on the opposite end, you might walk through a community in a neighborhood and go to a school and just fall in love with it and feel that it's perfect. So when you're thinking about it, especially for those of you who are thinking about making Aliyah a year or 2 years down the road, you have plenty of time to plan this. And really, a pilot trip should be a centerpiece of your planning. If you can come with your kids, that's great. If you can't, if the husband and the wife can come together, that's amazing as well. But even if you can't, just one of the parents, if you can just come here for a week to 10 days and spend the time to really see and talk to people, I think it will go a long ways in helping you making the right decisions for the community, which, please God, will then translate into a successful Aliyah. So if you have any questions, definitely reach out to us. There's a lot more information and advice that we're happy to share with you and help you along the journey. With that, I'd like to turn to Rav Felberg, who's the rabbi in Harish.
Shalom, shalom, and good morning, everybody. Good evening. I want to say again, thank you to Rafi and Paul and everyone here for organizing such a beautiful and amazing event, and the chance to really, promote the mitzvah, very dear to my heart, very dear to all of your hearts, of Yeshua Aretz, coming and settling in the land of Israel. It's an incredible, amazing thing. With Zat Hashem, everyone should go Michael from strength to strength and find success with Zat Hashem at this meeting on the Aliyah and, going forward. So, as Rafi said, I'm zocher to be the Rav of one of the growing new centers, we hope anyway, of the Anglo-Jewish community here in Israel, the Anglo-Israeli community, I should say. And first of all, Harish, you've probably never even heard about it. Certainly when I first moved to Harish, now back 4 years ago, in 2020, and then 2 years before that, when we bought our apartment here, no one had ever heard of it either. But now today, Harish is quite a well-known location. You tend to speak to any Israeli on the street, you mention Harish, yes, I've got a cousin who lives there, or I've got a brother who lives there, or yes, I live there. Whatever it is, it's becoming a well-known center, Baruch Hashem, in Israel. Where is it located? Well, if you take Tel Aviv on a map on the coast and head straight up, you'll hit a town called Netanya, and then you keep going north, you'll hit a town called Hadera. Then you go directly east from that, inland, and you come to Pardes Chana, and right next door to Pardes Chana is the fastest growing city in Israel today, and that is the city of Harish, and that is where we are. So we're not on the beach, we're a bit far off the beaten track, but we consider ourselves to be on the northern point of the Mirakaz, the uppermost reaches of the Mirakaz, or if you like, on the southernmost point of the Haifa region. What is Harish? Well, like I said, it's the fastest growing city in Israel at the moment, a city of 40,000 people, which is aiming to be 200,000 people by 2030. So, there's a rate of expansion here that's going on at an incredible speed. The area, the city council is pushing very hard to ensure that growth is sustainable and the amenities grow within the city at the same pace of the population increases. Even though we're a city and we're on the grow, and there's this great aim of building a city of 200,000 people with a train station and with everything you could possibly want here under one roof, it still has a small town feel. It feels like a yeshuv in the sense that everybody knows each other. You walk down the street, you're seeing the same people, you're getting to know everybody. And that's a really nice thing to have, that when you come particularly as an Olim are loved here. Why? Because you're seen as a real halutznik, you're seen as a real pioneer, you're settling a new place, a new area of Israel, and Israelis love that. And your fellow Anglos are here to support you and give you that kind of, safe landing that you need to have. The understanding you're not in one of the traditional Anglo centers like Ra'anana or Modi'in, etc. In terms of amenities, at the moment, everything that you could practically want, from the post office to all the Kupat Cholim, to having restaurants and activities for the children. There's lots of things available and easy to access here in Harish in the town. And one thing that I do have to warn you, though, is that this is not a place where you could live probably the rest of your life never speaking a word of Hebrew. This is an Israeli city, and therefore you're going to have to integrate. You're going to have to speak some Hebrew. You're going to have to break your teeth on it, as they say here. When you go into the stores, when you go to the bank, etc., it's an Israeli city. But if you're motivated, and coming to Israel for you isn't just about finding somewhere to live, it's also about being part of Israeli society and learning to speak Hebrew and connecting with what it means to be part of the tarbut, the culture here, then Harish may well be the place for you. Why do people come to Harish compared to any other neighborhood or area of Israel? Well, it's frankly the cost. The apartment prices, the price of buying an apartment in this area is much, much cheaper, or renting an apartment is much, much cheaper than what you'll find in the Mirakaz. But at the same time, the Mirakaz being the center of the country, at the same time, we have easy connections to the center of the country. So the price that you're going to get of an apartment, renting in Netanya or in Hadera, for example, in Harish, you're going to be paying a third less. And to buy an apartment, you're probably looking at up to a 50% discount on what you're going to be paying in the more traditional Merkaz centers. Compared to Ranana or Yerushalayim, even cheaper. The commute to the center of the country is a very important point for people, because obviously work is central, and most people do work in the Merkaz. To get to Tel Aviv in the morning, on a regular commute, you're talking about an hour and 15 minutes, which sounds like a long time, but most jobs, particularly in the high-tech sector, where a lot of Israelis are employed, or in the legal sector, you're only going to be going into the office 2 or 3 days a week now. That post-corona, that post-COVID world is still very much a part and parcel of life here. And therefore, people, when they do commute, don't make it an everyday 5-day-a-week experience normally. And traveling to Yerushalayim is about an hour and a half, or on the number 6 highway, which takes you straight down south to Yerushalayim. So it's very well connected as well if you want to go to Yerushalayim, either to visit or for employment reasons too. That being said, people do have local employment here. People often work remotely from their homes, possibly for American companies or companies in the United Kingdom, where you can tell from my accent is my own origin. And so there's all sorts of different alternatives and solutions here. Living in Harish shouldn't make you feel cut off from the rest of the country. And the plans are now to invest heavily, in fact, in the commercial aspect of Harish, and therefore they'll be opening a business park where they're going to try and attract, various firms and various startups, etc., to come and work out of the city. So it's a good time to come, because that boom is definitely going to be coming to Harish in the next couple of years. In terms of the where you are physically, well, you're not on the beach, that's for sure, but we do have these beautiful rolling hills. We're right next to the Shomron, which you can see. I can see from my balcony. And lots of forests. So if you like going out, for walks on the weekend, for hikes, that sort of thing, is a beautiful and lovely place to be. And it's a very safe place as well. Even though we are north, we are sufficiently south that we haven't had one siren here since October 7th. We felt very much part of the experience, but Harish is not somewhere that is a major center which is exposed to attacks, and we feel very safe. Another nice thing about Harish is because every single apartment is new. Every single apartment comes with its own cheder bitachon, its own security room, its own mamad, which is by law, all new apartments in Israel have to be built with, so that has v'shalom, in the event of a siren, you're protected. You have none of these old style apartments which you'll find elsewhere, where you don't have that safety and that ability to know, there's somewhere for you to go in the case of an emergency. Now, a little bit about our shul, Kilat Derech Eretz, where I'm Zocher to be the rabbi, and we've been serving this community now for 3 years, which is when the shul started. The community started for a number of different reasons, but just to tell you a short story, when we first made Aliyah back in 2016 now, so my wife and I have been here in Israel for 8 years. Just after we made Aliyah, we got off the boat, rose-tinted glasses on, everything's wonderful, Israel's this beautiful place, and we went to a wedding of a friend, sitting down, at the table, everybody celebrating, and sitting next to a couple who my wife knew. We got schmoozing. And of course, questions about Aliyah, the fact we just arrived, etc. And it turned out this couple who'd been in Israel for a few years now were actually making Yeridah. They were doing the opposite of what we're talking about today. They were leaving Israel. And I couldn't believe it. Why were you leaving Israel? Why would somebody come to the land of Israel, settle the land, be here in a Jewish country, and now want to leave? And the answer they gave me was, "You're sure we're leaving Israel? Why? Because we want to find our Yiddishkeit." And I couldn't believe it. It blew my mind that someone would say that. But what I came to understand over my next few years here in Israel is that it's a very valid response. Why? Because Israel does not typically have communities in the same way that we're familiar with in Chutz La'aretz. What is becoming more regular now and becoming something which you're seeing in more and more places is this attempt to build Anglo-style communities or diaspora-style communities rooted in Israel, Zionistic and Israeli, but still very much with that warm, welcoming feeling to enable people to feel like their shul isn't just somewhere they come to pray, but it's a home. It's a place where people invite each other. It's a place where you can come to shiurim. It's a place where you can connect. That culture doesn't exist so much in the regular Israeli society. It's changing now because the Israelis are seeing what the Olim are importing. They're saying, wow, that's what we want as well. But that's still something that's happening. And so Kehilat Derech Eretz, our Shul in Harish, was born out of that idea, the need to find a center where people can connect as part of a community, can learn together, can grow together. And it wasn't just something that, people were going to, coming to pray and then to go home. We're 60 families strong and growing, B'ezrat Hashem. Every month more families arrive. We have Olim from America, from Australia, from South Africa, from England, local Israelis as well, who like what we do and how we present ourselves, and like being part of an Anglo shul. They think it's a bit of a novelty, coming and davening with us. We're also the only Nusach Ashkenaz shul in the city, pure Nusach Ashkenaz, so it's familiar to a lot of our Olim who can connect to that because it's what they grew up with and it's what they're used to. And the shul was born out of learning program. Before we had the shul itself, which now operates out of a school hall, but we've been given land to build our proper binyan, proper building for a synagogue, B'ezrat Hashem, very soon. We're getting started on the fundraising and everything. We were meeting in people's homes, learning Mishnah Berurah, just getting together and doing a bit of learning. People said, well, why don't we try davening together? We started davening Friday night together, and then we grew and we grew and we grew until eventually it just happened very naturally. The shul became a fully functioning, full-service Beit Knesset, which I, together with my work in the local midrashah where I teach, and various other things that I, do to keep myself busy, I'm able to fulfill the role of a rabbi in what you're familiar with in Chutz La'aretz, which again is not necessarily something that Israelis understand when they talk about a rabbi. A rabbi in Israel is often someone you ask a shaila to, and that's it. That's your extent of your relationship. There's not the pastoral side, and that's something else that Kehillah offers. We have a very close relationship with the mayor, with the Ariya, who wants to see us succeed and see Harish as a future center for Anglo Jews, Anglo Olim, and therefore they encourage us and make life as easy as possible for us to grow our community. So what are the kind of families who are coming and living in Harish and joining our community? Well, about 2/3 of the families in our shul are basically, young married, either without or with young children. So until last year, I could tell you it was all young marrieds with children. But now what's happened this last summer, we've had 4 or 5 families just appear and join, who haven't even had children yet. They're newlyweds. And so this is very young feel. There's a lot of young children at the Kiddush, which we have every week. There's Tfilat Yeladim, which is very enjoyable. We have a smaller number of families who have bar mitzvah age children. We had 5 bar mitzvahs over the course of this year. So there is that element as well. But most of those families have lived in other places in Israel first, rather than making Harish their first home. And we have 1/3 of the community, which are essentially retirees, empty nesters, people who want to live in Israel, but they want to be close to their grandchildren, maybe, who are local, but they can't afford to live in the Merkaz, or they don't want to live in the Merkaz for whatever reason. So they come to Harish, where they can still be in Israel, they can be close to the family, but they can't necessarily afford to live somewhere which is more expensive, one of the more traditional Anglo centers. So they come and they fit in very nicely to the neighborhood. We have, sponsor of grandparents events where they come and they, look after the children as well. So there's a very nice connection and integration with the wider community between the younger elements and the older elements. There are 5 neighborhoods in the city. The Anglo community is focused primarily around the Chorish neighborhood, which is where all of our activities happen. And the shul is currently based, and where the shul building, B'ezrat Hashem, very soon will be built. And if you want to find out more, about Harish, about our shul Kehilat Derech Eretz, please feel free to reach out to me. I saw Ariela was here earlier on the call. She literally did a feature on my family as the front faces of Aliyah. So feel free to see that and check out more information about how our personal journey and how we came to Harish and how everything we do got started. But B'ezrat Hashem, we should all be zocher, we should all be matzliach to be successful in this undertaking. Again, Yeshar Koach. And if anyone has any questions or would like to find out more about Harish, about our shul, about myself, please feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to have a chat with you, have a Zoom, and B'ezrat Hashem, maybe welcome you here one day to our community.
Thank you, Rabbi. Okay, now we're going to reach out to Yitz from Nefesh B'Nefesh. Go ahead, Yitz.
Okay, I get to go last after all these amazing tips. I also think I have about 5 seconds left based on the timing. So my apologies if I talk quick, but it's good practice for getting used to Israelis who speak really quickly. I will try to limit this to 5 takeaway things that you can take away. One is you have the time. Think about your Aliyah, research it well. There's almost 80,000 Olim from North America who made Aliyah in the last 21 years. Be specific. Don't be afraid to don't ask how do you like this or whatever it is, you can ask, people are known in Israel that you can ask them what their salaries are and you can ask them all kinds of things. So don't be afraid to ask them not only what they like about something, but also what they don't like about something. And you have time. For most of you, I assume you have time. Make a plan. And there are people who make Aliyah also from within Israel with Nefesh B'Nefesh. And we sometimes have people who are 8 months pregnant and then they are like, I have to make Aliyah right now. And they don't have any documents. And I'm pretty sure, I'm guessing they knew a little bit earlier than just now. So if you have the time, use the time and plan. Let me give you some ideas of some resources when it comes to that. Our website is chock full of information. Just a pro tip, if you're looking for any Aliyah information, and you Google NBN, Nefesh B'Nefesh, and the thing you're looking for, you will probably find a well thought out, well-written article that's up to date on our website. They actually just finished updating a new budgeting tool for those who want to work on their budget and see how it fits in. It's called israelbudget.com, but you can just Google NBN budget and you'll get to that same place. There's Facebook groups. Not everyone's on Facebook when it comes to Israel. I would recommend that if you can, you should be. A lot of things happen on Facebook in Israel. One of those things, community comes up a lot. I saw in like the questions. When it comes to communities, there's a Nefesh B'Nefesh group that is people who are looking for Anglo communities in Israel. It's phenomenal, so practical. You write a short paragraph about what you're looking for, and not only will you get suggestions of communities, you'll get people who live in those communities who will be responding. So then you can then take that offline and say, hey, can we have a conversation and get real information? We also have webinars on our YouTube channel. So if you go on YouTube and you put in Nefesh B'Nefesh, you get a whole list of webinars. Pick your topic, we have something. I just looked at it earlier. Rights and benefits, your healthcare, your Aliyah with a child with special needs under 21, over 21, buying a home, renting a home. We have a webinar on it, most of them very recent as well. So that's in terms of some of the resources that you can use. The second thing is documents. That seems to be a big preoccupation for a lot of people. For those who haven't already started the process, you may or may not have heard the word apostille, or as it's sometimes pronounced, apostle, or some Olim who call it apostili, or other names for it. It becomes like this big, huge thing. It's a headache sometimes, but it's a headache. At the end of the day, this is all just getting you there. It's a bureaucratic process. I always say bureaucracy and logic, they don't go together. The faster you accept that, the happier you'll be with your Aliyah. So just these are the documents you need, then these are the documents you need. Everybody needs a rabbi's letter, even a rabbi, and he can't write one for himself. So these are just things that you need. Put it into perspective, understand what you need, and don't compare. I hear people all the time. They're like, my brother, when he made Aliyah, he didn't need any of this. I say, when did your brother make Aliyah? In 1937 on a camel. I said, well, okay. So you sometimes think that you know the exact same, you're the exact same as your neighbor, but you don't know that there's an adoption, a conversion, something else going on, who knows? So you don't always know the situation. You should do the research and say, hey, I heard about this, and then ask somebody, but don't compare yourself to somebody else. They may have come on a camel in 1937. Number 3, start an application. At the end of the day, I was looking at all this list of questions. There's a million permutations here, and it goes back to what I just said before. Start an application. When should you start an application? The minimum time I would tell you to try, now you can do it less, is 10 to 12 months in advance, start an application. You can start it earlier if you want, but 10 to 12 months is usually a good time. There's no commitment by starting an application. Not only is there no commitment by starting an application, even if you got approved for Aliyah, your approval is good for a year, and some people, for whatever reason, things come up or whatever, don't end up taking advantage of that approval. So until you actually landed in Israel with an Aliyah visa in your passport, you didn't make Aliyah. So you can use that time to get everything in place, get things out of the way. Going back to the documents, apostilles don't expire. There are very few documents that have to be done within a certain amount of time. Most basic documents, your birth certificates, marriage certificate, if there's a divorce certificate, anything like that, get it out of the way. It can take months to get it. But once you have those with the apostille, you have it and you're good. So that's in terms of starting an application, and then you'll have somebody to speak to from Nefesh B'Nefesh, be able to ask all your personal specific questions. If you're talking about planning even earlier, certainly, you have time to work on your plan, your finances. Hebrew, somebody asked, do you need Hebrew to make Aliyah? You do not need Hebrew to make Aliyah, but the more Hebrew you have, the more opportunities exist, the more doors will open for you. So you'll have more opportunities and you'll have more options in terms of where you live in communities and jobs and socially and getting around in the supermarket, etc. And this is an excellent sub-tip to this, which is a lot of times when you're making Aliyah, the kids are sort of on the side. They're not really part of the process because you're so busy with all the documents and the documents and the documents and bureaucracy and all that stuff. Bring the kids involved. This is an excellent opportunity for that, using Hebrew. Get them to hear more Hebrew, play more Hebrew at your house. Put little signs on little things around your house. On the door, you write Delet. I'm giving you a free Opan word. The next one costs. Fridge, you write, Mekarer. Little things like that. It will not only give them more Hebrew, it also give them to be sort of part of it. Oh, hey, we're making Aliyah. It's a thing. And that's a good way to bring your kids into the process who generally are left out of the process and get them a little bit excited. And the last thing that I would say is that if you are on the Zoom or in person and you listen to all these amazing tips and all these amazing speakers, that means that you're already on your way. You're interested in various stages of your Aliyah. When this Zoom ends, take one practical step, whatever that small step is, whether it's putting something on your fridge that says Mekarer, whether it's starting an application, maybe it's more than 12 months. You can start an application earlier. That's fine. It'll give you a sense of things. Take one tiny step forward. If you're already started an application, get your next document, get your next meeting with your Aliyah advisor so that you can already move to the next step and turn this whole past hour and a half into something practical that will get you to your next step. Did I stick to my 30 seconds?
That's perfect. Thanks, Yitz. Okay, now, Paul, if you're back on.
I'm back on.
Go ahead.
So, yes, thank you very much, Yitz. Nefesh B'Nefesh has tremendous amount of information, and I encourage everyone to take advantage of all those resources. There are two things I want to talk about. Many times we go into a community and we find people who want to make Aliyah together. And we're already seeing examples of communities that have decided, hey, we're going to get 10 people, 20 people together and actually move, or actually buy real estate together as a group. And a lot of benefits to that, both from the socialization perspective, as well as the financial perspective, because you can get some really good deals if you're coming in, say, I'm going to buy 10 apartments. And there was an example most very recently in Long Island, where a group of people bought 42 apartments altogether, and they got a really good deal. So this is an example of some communities that have banded together. Yardley, Pennsylvania went to Afula, Lakewood went to Beit Shemesh, Deal went to Netanya, the bunch of people from Teaneck, they went to Ramat Beit Shemesh, and we can go on and on. So people from the Highland Park, Edison, East Brunswick community, if you are interested in doing something together as a group, we can figure out ways of facilitating that activity. Let's talk a little bit about next steps. So this was a 1.5 hour webinar, and we touched on a lot of subjects. However, we would like to offer you as a group to delve into those areas that you think are important to you. So Josh Caplan volunteered to kind of lead an effort for the Highland Park, Edison, East Brunswick community to kind of bring together people to have discussions together of particular issues or opportunities with regard to making Aliyah. And it's really going to be up to you to decide where you want to focus your attention. Now, do you want to focus your attention around how do you choose a new community? Do you want to focus more attention on healthcare? Do you want to focus your attention on purchasing real estate? Let me give you a quick example. We did this in Highland Park, Edison, about 22 years ago, and we expected about 30 people to show up, 150 people to show up. Out of that group, roughly about 70 families actually bought real estate in Eretz Yisrael, and about 2/3 of them have already made Aliyah. So buying real estate early on is a very, very good investment. I know someone asked me, do you think real estate's going to go down because of what's going on now in Eretz Yisrael? And the answer is absolutely no. There have been many wars over the past 20 years, and almost every year, price of real estate has gone up 15%. So there's a real advantage, if you're thinking about buying real estate, to start looking now for those opportunities that may exist in the many communities that are available to you. And again, choosing communities can be very important. And we have some really good resources that are available both through Nefesh B'Nefesh, as well as other organizations that'll help you find out and find to what type of community may be most appropriate for you. Choosing a school we talked about as being very important. We can bring together other educators to come and talk to you about the different educational opportunities. Keep in mind when you talk about university education, and I was blown away from this. I'm sorry, I had to pay tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars for my children's education universities. If you go to Tel Aviv University, Hebrew U, a typical tuition for a university degree is like $3,000 a year, not $80,000 a year. So it's really a very big difference. And the quality of education is very high in the universities here in Israel. So again, I encourage you to reach out to Josh and to Mark or to myself as they're going to bring together let me call it a community Aliyah Chabura, decide what type of activities you really want to talk about, and we will bring to you those experts who can help resolve some of the issues that you bring to the table. One of the other things that we're going to do, we're going to set up a WhatsApp group for all the people from the Highland Park Edison community, so you'll have the ability to communicate with each other. For those people from other communities who are on this call and you'd like to do something similar for your community, please reach out to me. I'll be more than glad to set up a session for you, for your community as well. So we're kind of almost on time. We're only 6 minutes late, but we started 5 minutes late. So I'll say that we actually ended on time. But we did have a set of questions and answers that we will respond to you both personally and on the WhatsApp groups. So if people want to stay to address some of the questions, we will be more than glad to do that. Josh, do people want to stay for another few minutes to address some of the questions?
Thank you, Paul. I don't know if anybody had any questions here. Wait, so I'm going to have them read. Okay, so I think somebody has a question. Hopefully you can hear. Actually, it might be better if you just came up here because then there won't be any feedback. Okay.
Who's someone I can talk with at Nefesh B'Nefesh to find out what schools to explore for my children? I'm going to be going in January to look at schools for my kids. I have a 13-year-old boy who would be going to the Edison yeshiva if we stayed here, and I have a 9-year-old boy who's going to be going into 5th grade next year.
So 2 parts to this. Did you start an application?
Yes.
Okay, so the advisor would be the first person to speak to. We also have a communities expert.
Okay.
You can ask your advisor how to get in touch with them. And on our website, on the main page, there's a drop down there which gives you a chance to make an appointment with the community expert. You may not find, he's pretty busy. So you may find more luck doing it through your advisor to kind of make that connection, but there is somebody who that's his expertise about communities.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you.
What else here? Oh, so one of the questions that came up here, you talked about things don't expire based on the apostille, whatever. Somebody said that the FBI clearance, somebody was told that it was only a 6-month window. Is that accurate?
Correct. That's why I said almost everything. That's why the basic documents get out of the way. Even if you're making Aliyah in 3 years from now, get your birth certificate on apostille, your marriage certificate apostille, your divorce certificate apostille, your whatever. Those things you can get out of the way because they won't expire, and in some cases will take months to get. The background check, and it could be multiple background checks. I had somebody who needed from 4 different countries, and they're only good for 6 months. Try timing that. And he did, and they made Aliyah. But the background check is only good for 6 months. There's 1 or 2 other documents that are slightly time sensitive. The rabbi's letter, sort of. They say it has to be within a year. Then they decided it doesn't have to be within a year. They said, great, how long can it be? And they said, we're not telling you. So we don't actually know. So there's a little bit of a gray area. If it's from 20 years ago, it's not going to be valid. But if it's within a year for sure. So there's a little bit of gray area in terms of that. And there are those who are wondering why they need an updated rabbi's letter and why it's not enough to be born Jewish, a common question we have. Remember what I said earlier, bureaucracy, logic. I actually do have an answer for that, but that's for another time.
Anyone else here? I try to have this.
What about for people who are pre-retiring by a number of years? What kind of jobs would there be?
You guys hear the question? It was about pre-retirees, people that maybe are only going to work for a few more years. What kind of jobs, what kind of opportunities are available?
Is Mayan still on?
I don't think so. Again, this is
Yes.
one of those very particular questions which I won't be able to answer on one foot. Like many places, unfortunately, there's certainly ageism in some sectors more than others. It depends on what you do now and what you're, one of the things, we also have an employment department, and they can help you. One of the things to consider is how to translate what you're doing now into something that might be using the same skills, even if it doesn't sound like the same thing you're doing now. Like, distill from what you're doing now, what are the essential skills you're walking away with that you have, and see how do I match that with what we can, what's going on in Israel. I would also suggest going on the NBN job board. Again, Google NBN job board. You'll get to the NBN job board. You won't get a job from that job board today because you're talking about down the road maybe, but you will be able to get a sense of kind of jobs that people have. So it's worth looking at that job board just to get a sense of some of the opportunities that there are out there. So half answer.
Everybody that registered.
Yeah, so what we're just, everybody that's registered for this event, whether in person or online, they'll be put onto a WhatsApp group, assuming they provided a number. Is that correct, Paul?
That is correct, and we will send a recording to everyone who registered.
Okay, very good.
And I just wanted to interject before we finish. Sorry, because one of the new Olim in our community just messaged me saying you're speaking at my old shul. So from Moshe and Shira Sheldon, they say shalom to everybody, and they're having a great time here in Harish with us. Shalom, shalom.
Wow. Okay, so I think what we're going to do here, I don't know if you guys want to stay on, but I think we're just going to do here is just quickly have a conversation to see what we want to do as next steps to maybe after the Chagim we'll get together and what forum people would like and how we can stay connected. But certainly the first way is going to be through the WhatsApp group, and this way we'll all have similar information. And I thank you. We all thank you very much for the time that you put in, and Paul and Rafi, thank you so much.
Thanks for all the organizers.
Atava.
Yes, and again, let me thank all the speakers and thank all of you for giving us an hour and a half of your time. I know this is a very busy time of the year, and it should be a Chasiva Tova to everybody.
You will. So that's a vibe one.